Good morning and happy Tuesday. We'll wait a few more minutes or maybe a minute or so just to give stragglers a chance to hop on and then we'll get rolling. If you're already on, we'd love to hear in the chat who you are, where you're from, identifying features. Feel free to share. I'm looking at my halo too. Interesting. If you're ju- if you're just joining us, we'll get started in a moment, but we'd love to hear from you, who you are and where you're from. Please add that to the chat or to the comments. Welcome, Eric. Well, it's 2 minutes past the hour, so we may as well get rolling. This is recorded, so people will be able to pick up and watch later if they'd like. So, Katie, let's get the show going. Happy Tuesday. Good morning. I'm Eric, the CEO of WideFoc.us Social Media, a company I founded way back in 2007. We've been in business for 18 plus years. We provide social media services for clients around the country in North America, everything from organic posting, or should say organic content strategy that includes posting, monitoring in real time for questions, comments, and feedback, real time engagement, strategy based on target audiences and business goals, excuse me, and of course, now even more so around AI search optimization. And then we run paid campaigns designed to help our clients grow their brands, drive more business, increase leads, and increase revenue. We also today have a guest or have a special guest or co-presenter from Cultivate Advisors, which is an amazing organization. We worked with them for a few years starting in 2019, and they fundamentally changed the way we do business. So super supportive, very helpful, gave us a lot of insights as we grew into towards our second decade. So as you hear from Matt today, I can't recommend enough the use of Cultivate for business growth and support and strategy. Now, let's talk about our co-presenters today. We're going to start with Matt. He is the partner and director of advisory services at Cultivate Advisors. He is super smart, very intuitive, and he's going to give you some real insights today. Following Matt, we will have our own Amanda Dunlap. She is our director of strategy and relationships. We call her the glue at WideFoc.us. She works on strategy and works with me on strategy, and then she's really the person who makes sure that all the dots are connected between our clients, our community managers, our ad strategist, our graphic designer, our copy editor, to make sure that our team-based approach is solid. And so she will be talking about annual or year-long social media strategy and why it's important. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt to talk about annual planning. Take it away, Matt.
Outstanding. Eric, thank you for having me. I appreciate coming onto this webinar with you and the WideFocus team in general. You guys have been great partners, and this is a very important topic, right? So today we're in one of two camps. So the big topic for today is 2026 growth strategies, creating a plan going into the next year. And so again, you're in one of maybe two camps here. You either have a plan and you're maybe just looking to validate it. You're looking for that last maybe little thing that might be missing, or you have not started and you're realizing that it's the end of the year and we're coming up against a deadline. And maybe you're even looking in like, do I even need a plan going into the new year? Well, the reality is yes. If you do not have a plan for the year will plan you. And that's so true around annual planning. There is a tremendous cost of not having a plan. I listed a couple of examples here, but essentially it's right. If you don't have a plan, you're going to miss targets, or maybe you're setting a goal too big or too small, or you don't even know what that target should be and why. You could be making reactive decisions, which definitely impacts long-term of the business, and so on, right? Getting unmeasured progress within the business. We can move on to the next slide here. Thank you. All right, so how do we start? We start with the mindset of enterprise value. And that might be a term that's new to a couple of us. Usually when you think of starting a business plan, you're thinking, how do I grow revenue or how do I grow profit? But really the trick here is growing enterprise value. And we tie that all the way back to something that we call the freedom point. And it really connects the dots for three different parts of life. It's your business, it's the systems, the structure, the people on the team. It's personal. This is where you regain the time and space to do the things that you really enjoy in life. And then it's the financial, where you're not just running a job or working in a job, you're building an asset. And that's what it's all about. And that freedom point number is different for everyone. That truly is the North Star that we're pursuing. So there is a methodology on how you come up with that number, but the trick is tying that back to the enterprise value. What are we trying to build this business? And the reason I'm going so broad and so macro at the moment is because unless you have a macro plan, my freedom point, where I want to be in 3 to 5 years or 10 years, or what I need my business maybe to be worth, or the lifestyle I want to have around this business, building an annual plan does not matter because we're just throwing darts at a dartboard. We can move on. So within the annual planning process, I want to start by saying we need to have a funeral, or maybe some of us need to have a funeral. And what I mean by that is if you think back maybe 3 years ago, you lost a key employee, or last year you made a bad business decision that cost you a lot of money. We need to have a funeral on those items and move on. We need to look at 2026 and ahead, because that's where the growth and the pivot is going to be in the business. And so what I'm asking today as we kind of walk through this is going to be just reset your focus and refocus on a process, refocus on what's going to matter, what's going to drive that long-term goal that you have for yourself. And what we're going to do, you'll see this as I continue talking here, is we're going to move from the macro, which a lot of what I'll talk about, and then we'll get into some of the micro later today. So I'll talk through just a very high level annual planning framework that works. And this is the methodology that we use at Cultivate Advisors. So what we want to do first is start with a long-term vision and long-term vision and goals, right? So that's bigger than the annual. That's 3 to 5 years out. That might be your North Star. You may have heard the term BHAG. That's that vision. That's what we're rallying the troops around. Maybe we don't know how to get there, but that's the goal. Is we want to go target a number down the road, and then everything we're doing, the work that we're doing each year leading up to that, is in pursuit of that goal, and it just stacks on top of each other. The next thing that we'll do is we'll slow down and we'll set 3 to 4 directional goals in the business. Now, these goals are not necessarily department goals yet. These are more macro goals for the business. So many of you are probably here because marketing or lead generation might be an area of interest. That might be a goal that we're setting, one of these macro goals, like I want to diversify lead generation. in my business in 2026 or maybe into the future? Right? So we need 3 or 4 of these at all. Now, why would we want that? Right? So that kind of ties back to the vision. And then we take the 3 to 4 macro goals, and then we look out at a KPI level, a key performance indicator. If you as maybe the owner, it's just you and then your team, maybe that's just 3 to 5 KPIs for the company. If you're a little bit bigger and maybe you have a handful of departments within your company, each department should have 3 to 5 KPIs as well. All of these need to tie back to at least one or multiple of the annual goals that ties back to the vision, which ties back to the enterprise value target, which ties back to your freedom point. Through this process, you're going to start to see that there's a lot of action items to do, or priorities or initiatives or roadmap items that we often call them. It's like, I need to do this. Well, if this is going to happen in my business, I need to change this. The next step is really just prioritizing what those initiatives are. What are the things that need to happen in quarter 1 so we can go into quarter 2? And then what has to happen in quarter 2 to go into quarter 3? And it's really just breaking it out that small. And then finally, a business plan is great if it's in your head. I say that somewhat sarcastically. It's even better when it works with you and your team. So a business plan should be bigger than you. It should be bigger than just one department. It should be bigger than just this one thing we talk about once a year. We need to be running our business on a plan. And most importantly, it's not fully directed by the owner or the CEO. It's somewhat ways of top down and bottom up. The owner might go set the vision, but at the end of the day, it's the team that's bringing up some of the initiatives and the work, and getting everyone to collaborate together is really key when we're doing annual planning. We can move to the next slide. So the annual planning process, you can see the blue bar at the bottom. Annual planning, as I mentioned a minute ago, is not just a one-time a year. Business is running an annual plan. And if we don't have that mindset, that would be the first shift I would make. We might be building the annual plan in quarter 4 or the quarter leading up into your new fiscal year. But annual planning is a process. This is how you run business. So we'll start, again, this full annual plan, which is across all 4 quarters in a year. And then we just break this down into quarterly sprints. We're running in 90-day increments. And you can even break that down further with bi-weekly sprints. So every 2 weeks, I want to pull out time and work on my business. Not in the business, I want to work on the business. And then once a quarter, we're zooming out and we're saying, okay, how did the last quarter go? How am I trending against my plan? And what do I need to do differently or pivot or continue doing going into quarters 2, 3, and 4? And that process continues throughout the year. You can move to the next slide. And then the methodology. So tying all of this together, building a plan is not just, I want to go hit 1 million or 5 million or 10 million in revenue. It's not, I want to make just $100,000 or $200,000 or $500,000 a year. That's your revenue and your profit lines or your earning line, your compensation. We need to tie the whole business together around enterprise value. Why that's important is because your business becomes worth a lot more and the business health is that much better. What happens is the business becomes less dependent on a particular employee or customer or revenue stream when we balance the entire business out. So your plan, all parts of the business needs to be connected back. And the way we do this through the methodology is really starting with a financial center. You need to understand how the business is going to operate, what that 3 to 5 year financial path looks like. But then what does that mean for the growth side of the business, the sales and the marketing? And maybe what does that mean then for people? How many leaders do I need? Do they have the right training? How many people do I have to go recruit? And really in business, as we all know, it's that teeter-totter between growth and capacity. Growth, I grow more, I get more leads, I get more sales, I need more people. I have too many people, I have capacity, I need to grow more. And it's that balance. And so I'm going to kick this off, or over, I should say, to Amanda, who's going to talk a little bit specifically about the marketing. We call this a propeller. So the marketing part of the business. Again, I'm talking on the macro and building out the plan, but really where many business owners start with that annual planning process is, okay, growth usually happens with revenue or profit, and that usually starts on the marketing side. And so this is just a great segue into Amanda, kicking it over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Matt. Yes. So as he mentioned, the marketing is an essential piece of your growth strategy or your business strategy. That's sort of a given. Everyone who is part of a business operation understands that. And so our perspective here is that gone are the days of social media as an aspect of your marketing strategy being just a bonus or a luxury. It is a critical piece of discoverability, brand trust, and ultimately success for your business. And it's that way now more than ever with the rise of TikTok and other platforms as well. Strategic combination of organic and paid content serves as an effective extension of your marketing tactics. So that is our bread and butter, the holistic approach to social media for your business, and why a year-long plan for that is essential. Because I think, especially if you're attending this webinar, I would guess that many of you have been in the position that it's 4:30, 5 o'clock on, a Friday afternoon, and you've been swamped in meetings all day. You're ready to get out, but you're like, shoot, I haven't posted on social today. What can I post? What should I do? What do we need to talk about? What promos do we have? That's a very common challenge when it comes to in-house social media, or many times marketing managers wear the social media hat or multiple hats and find themselves in that position, which can be really frustrating. Excuse me, and also lead to very quick burnout or a unsuccessful social media strategy for your marketing plan. So this year-long strategy is what's so important, and why is that? So we talked a little bit about social media serves as the front lines of your brand. You're meeting your audience where they're already hanging out, and as opposed to people Google searching you or trying to come find you, they're actually seeking you out on social. You want to just be conveniently placed and having the same conversations they're having where they already are, which everyone is on social media nowadays. The AIO is a huge piece. Our last webinar was on AIO. If you missed it, I highly recommend taking a look there, because now AI is actually searching and sifting through your social media presence to reinforce and support Google search results that come up. So you're actually touching on those outreach customers or potential audience members too, who are actually actively seeking you out via Google, because AIO is now, or AI, sorry, is now sifting through that, as I mentioned. It also helps you create conversation and connection with your audience. That kind of touches on hanging out or being present where they're already hanging out. You want to make sure that you're having the conversation or cultivating the conversation through connection. And I'm sure you all have noticed very large successful brands, when they're doing it well on social, that's what you see. You see them creating conversation, cultural relevance, and of the like. This aspect is especially important because it's what builds brand trust and loyalty and keeps them coming back for more. A lot of today's buyers or potential customers, even if they're not yours yet, the way that you establish that loyalty or establish resonance with them in your product or service is through cultural relevance and values and morals, and kind of establishing a through line with your customer there. And so if you're able to generate conversation around those topics and around those core values of your audience, then they're going to stick around for life. Finally, benefits of planning. So as I mentioned, you don't want to be in the position where you're just all of a sudden going, shoot, I got to post. What do I talk about? You're way more likely to stay consistent and proactive with your planning and proactive with your social strategy when you have a 20,000-foot view of the year, versus that reactive posting, or we have an event going on today, or so-and-so said this, so we got to get a post up. This 20,000-foot view is kind of created around key priorities, seasonal changes, major events, product rollouts, launches, promos, etc., through lines or themes, as we call it, that you can kind of leverage as you're establishing this plan. And then finally, better budgeting for paid campaigns, which we'll talk about a little bit more on the coming slides, because it's very important to make sure that you have that budget established with the rest of your marketing budget or your annual plan budgeting, as Matt mentioned as well. So let's talk about the how. We talked about why it's important. Many of you probably already understand that, but how do we do it? So looking at the whole of the year and breaking it into parts is what will make this a little bit more doable, digestible, approachable, and then of course attainable and lead to greater success. So we always recommend either a monthly or a quarterly content calendar to map out your year in advance, but also in those bite-sizable pieces. Monthly is ideal. Quarterly might be a little bit easier for you if you have enough events that you're aware of within your business or brand that you can leverage. So establishing brand pillars, seasonal themes, promos, product launches that we talked about, and the benefits of planning. That will help you build the skeleton of your content calendar so that you can sort of start filling it in before you even have to come up with social media topics or understand what to post. And establishing that those brand pillars or content pillars, as we call them, is a key piece of understanding what to post, because you're then identifying who your target audience is and what you want them to do. That's where we always start. And then you can kind of go from there. That will help you break out your content pillars or brand pillars. And then slate in from there events, thought leadership topics, relevant holidays. If you know off the top of your head that there's National Jukebox Day, and you want to make sure that you're sharing relevant promotional events. For an example client that we have, that would be a great one. Look at the National Days calendar, understand relevant holidays that are pertinent to your target audience. And then of course, thought leadership. Where can you educate your audience on, your value and why go with that product or service over others? Events, trade shows, promos, things like that are great here too. Here's a tip. Target audience's needs or pain points change over the course of the year, so plan accordingly. So understanding the sort of the life cycle of your product or service is going to be critical. For example, a home improvement company, there's different services that match different needs throughout the year. So you would run a different promo or have different infographics or educational content around promoting furnace repair versus AC repair in the summer. Or if you're a B2B company, those B2B decision makers have certain times of the year where they're more proactive in budgeting or more proactive in actually needing to use up their budget towards the end of the year. So again, understanding that life cycle will help guide the themes that you have, and then create that through line through your monthly or quarterly content calendars. Finally, mapping out paid social priorities for better allocations. Social media platforms are a business as well, and they require you to pay to play, so to speak. The organic reach or engagement rate typically on most platforms is less than 1%. So we always say posting is not a social media strategy, which I don't want you to take as counterintuitive or oxymoron from what I've said before, because we do want consistency. That is important, but this is a critical aspect in helping your content go farther and reach those audience members, potential customers, decision makers. If you're a B2B company, helps them to actually see the content on your feed, especially if they don't yet follow you. And we want to activate them and kind of lasso them in and help them to understand why it's important to connect with you. What value do you serve, or what value do you bring to their needs? What problem do you solve? So the content mix here is organic and paid together as a cohesive social media strategy, holistic strategy. Having a mix of owned content and curated content, which is what we call it, is helpful in breaking up some of the more overly salesy topics that are all too easy to pull from whenever you're coming up with posting topics and things like that. So that would be leveraging third-party articles, resources, blog posts, reels, memes, to sort of bring in and help support the conversation, support your values and the services that you provide. And then real-time engagement, again, that's a big piece of what we do, or what we recommend for social media to activate those audiences and get them engaged. And then on the paid side of things, understanding that paid content or paid advertising on social media works its way from the top down. So it's not just for the purpose of engagement and visibility, though that definitely is important and it does help. But there are actually campaigns that you can run that work their way all the way down to conversion, website traffic, and lead generation, and everywhere in between. So this may seem like a lot of information. It's a little more complex when you get into the paid side of things. Total side note and shameless self-plug before it's our turn to self-plug. This is absolutely what we do, and we would be more than happy to help you here, because it can be a little complicated. It's like a big puzzle, understanding how to navigate the mix between organic and paid. But this is just here to show you that if you're navigating this for your business, or if you are a part of an in-house social media or marketing team, there are ways to create this cohesive approach that takes your audience and activates them from the top of the funnel all the way down, using both organic and paid content. I think that's it for me.
All right. Well, appreciate that, Amanda.
Yeah, absolutely.
As we zoom back out and talk big picture, annual planning, how do I go set my plan for the next year? Again, we've talked through some steps to do that at a macro level. We've gotten into some of the detail, but you might be at a point where you're like, okay, well, what is my budget? What's my budget in the business versus my marketing or advertising budget? How do I even set a budget? How would I prioritize marketing versus something on the sales side or hiring someone? How do I prioritize that and get that to fit within the model that aligns with my long-term plan? And then maybe another way is just, how do I use the data I have, or how do I go get that data? Right. So that's all stuff that at Cultivate's level that we can definitely help and support. And we do that through a couple of ways here that I have up on the screen. So the offer today is a free advising session. What we can do at Cultivate is, what I'd like to get you is to complete a health and value assessment. It's more or less the visual that I have on the screen. It's a 25-page custom document specific to your business, ranked on 24 value drivers, and it's going to help you measure the business's health and its potential value range of where you're currently at today, and mark that up against where you're trying to go. We'll then take a couple of hours together at no cost, and we can go build an annual plan with you. So if it's simply just validate what you have, or starting from scratch and we need to go set a long-term goal and then build out the 2026, we can do all of that. And then finally turn that into a tailored roadmap, a custom roadmap to help you get on the way for 2026. My contact information is listed here. I have my phone number, LinkedIn, and my email. And I ask, feel free to just reach out, and I'd be the one happy to grab some time with you and get you started for 2026.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Matt and Amanda. Before we go to Q&A, if there are any questions, I want to just briefly say, first of all, if you are a small or medium small or medium-sized business owner, you're kind of trying to figure out what you're going to do next. Maybe you're struggling a little bit with the bumpy economy, or you haven't really made a longer-term plan. Get with Matt. Like when I did that initial free session way back in 2019, it opened my eyes to ways to improve WideFoc. And that, in 2019, we were already 12 years old. And I wished that I had gotten with him or with Cultivate much earlier. So I highly recommend, if it's free, right? So if you have any questions, And if you just kind of want to see what's possible for your business, I highly recommend you work with them. That is a heartfelt testimonial. For you who are marketing execs and pros, hopefully you still got something out of the first part of that conversation, because there's a lot about planning that makes sense for your overall marketing plan. And then, of course, with social media, a lot of times that gets tacked on to marketing instead of being infused in it. And, for us, it's really important that the social media plan is aligned with the marketing plan, because social media should be driving marketing goals and revenue goals. Before we go to Q&A, just to make it a little more useful for you, I'd like you to please, if you have a second, write down 2 things that you found useful today or share them in the comments. And then most importantly, you got a lot of info. Please, just right now, take a second to write down something that you can do today. It's still morning, that's actionable and worthwhile to you, something that you're actually going to want to do as well. So it could be reach out to Matt. It could be map out a quarterly breakdown of priorities for social media in the coming year. It could be write down my content pillars for my brand, so I at least have an idea of how things should be organized. Just something like that, easy, actionable, something that you could actually do today when you get off the call to keep that momentum going, right? Like to keep what you learned today fresh in your mind and keep things going. And like I said, we will for sure this will be available to rewatch if you want to pull screenshots and all of that stuff. And of course, we're always happy to talk to you about it. So we're going to open it up to questions, and here's all of our contact information. We would love to get on a discovery call with you and walk through a free strategy session. And of course, like I said, get in touch with Matt. If you'd like that free advising session, I highly recommend it. So what questions do we have today? Matt, here's a question for you. How do I know how to set my annual plan goals? And I think that's like a good question, both for business owners and marketing execs as well.
Yeah, so the entire business needs to speak together. And again, we want to go back. This is bigger than just 1 year. I see so often that someone will say, I want to grow 15% next year, but it's not actually tied to a longer term plan. And what that ends up doing is, if we're trying to actually go hit a different number or a lifestyle or something down the road or a different business strategy vision down the road, if we're not taking the right steps along the way, that could potentially really push out the timeline. So tying the short-term annual goal to that long-term plan. And again, there's ways to do that. We have calculators for identifying that freedom point, building out that enterprise value number. So there's definitely ways to do that. And it can be done in 30 minutes is like a good starting point.
Awesome. Thank you. Amanda, here's a question for you. Is there an easy way to make sure I'm filling the content calendar with impactful messaging? That's a tough one, right? Like,
Yeah.
Where do you start, I guess? Is there an easy place to start?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. And it's definitely where a common place to sort of feel stuck or revert back to content that may or may not end up being as impactful long term if there's too much repetition there. So I always recommend starting with your content pillars. And we talked about that a little bit, but backing that up even further, how to establish content pillars is understanding target audiences and business goals. So I mentioned this as well. Who is it that you're trying to reach and what are you trying to get them to do? And then sort of go from there to identify those content pillars. Once you have those in place, ensure that there's a nice balanced mix of both the brand education, those sales oriented calls to action, promos, what we call self-promotional content, with the conversation generating content like trends, memes, cultural relevance, creating that connection and establishing connection with core values, your brand's core values with the company's core values as well.
Nice. Yeah. And to clarify, content pillars are like the 3 or 4, maybe 5 areas of content that you are consistently sharing with your audiences. So if you're an e-commerce company that provides, supplements to or health supplements, your content pillars might be ingredients, safety, effectiveness, sourcing, like the things that you can come back to again and again that differentiate your brand, and that each of those content pillars or themes matches key areas of what you provide, or what the pain points are that you solve for your target audiences. Eric, thank you for adding your comment. Yep, that sounds group. That sounds great. I was reading the thing to myself. And yeah, ask the group how they best tie their plans to educate their product's target audiences. And that is such a big thing, right? Because so much of what we do, especially in social media, is educate. And that's really important too, because when you're educating using social media posts, that's the kind of stuff that also educates ChatGPT and Google, which means that the crawler is going to pick that up. They're going to share it in the summaries. They're going to share it when people are searching. So education of your target audience, it's not just about educating them in your product or services. It's educating them in how to pick what you do, your products or services. It's educating them in how to assess and to even understanding the value that you provide. So really great comment there, Eric. Any other questions before we wrap up?
I see another question from Eric that I would be happy to speak to about Instagram, if that's all right. So Instagram definitely has evolved pretty rapidly over, since it was new, but even over the last year or less. So thinking about Instagram as a platform, where is time best spent? Reels versus posts versus stories, and then having that fear that stories don't last more than a day. So are they less impactful? Are they not quite as strong of a use of your time and resources to actually generate or create content there? So it's a really good question. I would say an even mix of all of these is important, and that may sound unhelpful. Reels can be a bit resource intensive, being that they're a video. So if your company doesn't have as much raw video content, or if you don't have a content creator, that can be a bit of an undertaking to ensure that you're hitting the mark on Reels. Though that being said, there are ways that you can create Reels without video content, which we'd be happy to discuss in further detail there, but leveraging some of the free content generation tools that there are out there, using infographics, more text, images even, and certain specific layouts, just to name a few. But I do want to reassure you that though Reels are really important, and that they will help your visibility, your engagement, your reach, and your content reach more people and audiences, go farther, so to speak. Having consistent posts and stories are a effective way to create that foundation for the platform for your brand. So, yeah, again, the Reels are important. It's not make or break. It's like a very nice to have, rapidly becoming, very important or critical to have. But right now, if you have an established content calendar that mostly includes posts and stories, then I would say that that's enough, and you can weave in 1 or 2 Reels a month, or even a quarter, if that's attainable for you. The most important thing is being consistent, having a plan, and then where possible, creating that paid strategy or paid campaign support to help it reach the audiences that Reels may reach if you have that gap. The last thing I'll quickly say about stories is Instagram loves when they use their shiny new thing or their features, and being that stories is one of those. We definitely recommend sharing stories as well, even though they have a shorter life cycle. You can either repurpose content from the post and just quickly resize it for a story as well, so that it hits the people who scroll the stories versus the people who scroll the feed. There's kind of 2 different audiences there. But Instagram will also prioritize your content and show your content when you're leveraging its features like stories and Reels. So we do recommend using those as well.
Thanks, Amanda. All right. Well, thank you all for spending the morning with us. Please reach out to Matt or to me or to Amanda if you have any more questions or want to have a further conversation about this. And have a happy Tuesday, a wonderful December, and happy holiday season as well. Thank you.